Welcome to the MSL 411, a podcast designed to equip both aspiring and experienced MSLs with the resources they need to level up their career toolkit. The heart of this podcast is to take the same industry knowledge and advice that we share with our own candidates and make it available and accessible to anyone looking for answers. So if you have questions, you've come to the right place. We're here to give you the 411. And without further ado, let's dive right in.
Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We have a guest for you today, Lawrence Beck, one of our own, who's going to be talking a little bit about Mass East, a conference he just came back from, giving us a little recap. But before we jump into that, Lawrence, will you kind of share with our listeners your background with Symbio, how long you've been recruiting, and what you like about working with MSLs?
Well, I started with Symbio back in 2011, so I've now done this for 13 full years. One of the partners here, and I really feel like I lucked into a good thing. I love working with MSLs because I tell this to people all the time. MSLs are a group of people that are sociable, friendly, smart, and professional, and I just not sure that I could see myself working with a better group of people.
Yeah. I completely agree. So you've been recruiting for quite a while now. What do you think has really differentiated Symbio over the years in your experience, and what do you think from the listener standpoint what tidbits can you share about us from the client side of things too? We've had Rochelle and Corey now on the podcast, kind of represented the recruiter world, but you work with some of our Symbio clients. So what has that what has that side of it been like for you?
I think it's been great also. Whether I'm working with one of the MSL hiring managers or someone in talent acquisition internally on the HR side, I've got great relationship. I think that's been great. I really enjoyed working with those people, and whether I'm working with them to find them the people that they want, or working with the people that I hope that they want to hire, the candidates. It's a great group. It's a great group of people, and I love doing it. Well, what sets Symbio apart? I think that if you got to know us at Symbio, I think we're a group of people that really cares.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think you'd ever catch us treating clients or candidates like commodities. We're in this for the relationships. We're driven by seeing people succeed and get what they want out of this career, and that's really fulfilling for everyone here. I think you can tell when you meet with people at Symbio.
Yeah, and you got to meet some of our clients at Mass East.
Yep.
So I'll kind of shift gears. So for somebody who's not familiar with Mass East, can you give like a little overview of the conference, like what the purpose of it is, who attends that sort of conference, and a little overview there?
Yeah. So first of all, MASS stands for Medical Affairs Strategic Summit.
Mm-hmm.
They do a couple of conferences each year. So that you've got Mass East, which they do every spring in New Jersey. And then later in the year, like in the fall, I think, they do Mass West in San Diego. And so whichever one you're going to, I think you're kind of getting the same thing. It's going to be an overview of industry trends, hot topics in medical affairs, strategies. This year, we've got a couple of newer, not brand new topics, but newer things like AI is obviously a big topic. And then omni-channel communication is still an important thing too. So yeah, you're getting a good combination of all of those things. The people that are there, you're going to get a pretty good mix of not only medical affairs leaders, but you got MSLs, you've got aspiring medical affairs people. I think the vendors too, the medical affairs solution providers, you've got a good combination there too. Pharma is very well represented, but device is pretty well represented there too. I think there's a good combination of people there. There's definitely at least a couple of speakers on the device side too. It's not just pharma, but you've got people who are there who have been working in medical affairs for years and years. They've seen big pharma, small pharma, and then you got people that come because maybe they're a new MSL leader or medical affairs leader, and they're there to learn and pick up some pointers too.
Yeah, and it's a good mix as far as speakers too. It's not all like the VPs of medical affairs that are talking about the different topics. It's sometimes people who are trainers, a VP of medical affairs. It might be a medical director. A variety of people. So you're getting a lot of different perspectives, more so than just one kind of category. It really appeals to a lot of people. So I really liked that conference when I got to go a few years ago. So What would you say were some of the standout sessions that you remember or that you recall really walking away from feeling, wow, that was great?
Well, for starters, I'm a big fan of the panel session, where
Okay.
you get several people on the stage. Everyone's talking, especially the ones that um, allow for a lot of audience questions. I love that unscripted, open forum type of thing. I think that that's where you get a lot of good real world examples out of people, and I feel like those are the ones that I come away with some of the best insights, if you will.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of those at Mass East. There was no shortage of those, so there's a lot of those. I really appreciated that. But they had a few sessions. There's kind of two main things I think that were frequently talked about this year, and that was proving the value of medical affairs
Okay.
and when and how do you build out a medical affairs team. I think those kind of went hand in hand at this conference. So one of my favorite sessions was a panel session where that was a topic. It was about um, defining the impact to medical affairs and when you build out your medical affairs team. So this panel, they largely agreed that the sooner you build out medical affairs, the better. Which not a surprise, but it was really interesting hearing why they thought the sooner the better.
Okay.
And there's a lot of factors, and it's kind of interesting to hear what some people take into consideration. So it might be for starters, how big is our team going to be? How many KOLs are there in our space? But I thought it was interesting to hear how much of their decision goes into the amount of educating that they're going to have to do ahead of time. And so that could mean, hey, are we going to be the first pharma company to market in this disease state? And if so, okay, well that means we get some more disease state educating to do. That means we have to go over how to diagnose in this space. That means maybe our MSLs are even out there finding our patient population, our target patient population, and that was really interesting to hear. But it was also interesting to kind of hear someone again, kind of just candidly say, it's kind of tough when you join a company that's never had medical affairs before. You're the first medical person in. The other departments have kind of gotten their chance to build their foundation, and then you get in there as medical, and you think, oh, I'm kind of behind everyone now, and there's some things that I kind of wish we had done a different way, but they didn't have a medical voice to kind of get in there and
they were too late.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know that they necessarily were too late, but maybe launch isn't going to go so smoothly now, at least not on the medical side. Because, these departments, ultimately, they all have the same goals, but maybe at that point in time, the goals aren't necessarily the same. And it would have been really nice to have that medical affairs voice in those meetings and help pick the vendors and the processes that they're going to follow and whatnot. So that was really interesting to hear.
Okay.
Then, there was another session that really intrigued me. Now, there were a couple of speakers from Alkermes, actually, and they are doing, they've got a department now that they call medical relations.
Oh.
Now, they acknowledge that some of their functions are probably done by other companies just under different titles, but they call it medical relations there. It's really interesting to hear what they do. So these people, they work closely with the MSLs, and they're in on the whole process of, tiering our KOLs, and developing profiles for the KOLs, looking at the publications, seeing where they're going to be speaking soon. But what I thought was really interesting is they're very hands-on with the MSLs when it comes to things like, they'll use an example. They'll say, we'll notice that our Pac Northwest MSL is going to go to Boise to see Dr. So-and-so. And we'll see that on their calendar, and we'll say, hey, while you're in Boise, we think you should see this other doctor too. Maybe because they're speaking at a congress soon, or whatever the case. I think there's a lot of different reasons why they would intervene and suggest something like that. But that was really interesting to see this kind of new level of field medical support getting added to their operations there at Alkermes. Okay. And then just generally seeing, I think, how much of a battle, I don't want to say battle, but how much of an emphasis medical affairs is still putting out there to show their value to their companies, which is kind kind of an age-old discussion. It seems. I think
Yeah.
that's been a thing for a long time, and here I am, 13 years later, still kind of surprised to see just how much emphasis is getting put on that at a big conference like this. And the point was made by one of the speakers that we're in a day and age when field medical is as in high demand as ever. The surveys show KOLs want to talk to the MSLs.
Yeah.
And MSLs are getting asked to do more than ever, but also during a time when budgets don't seem to be increasing with the demand and workload.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of medical affairs people feel that they have to show their value to their internal stakeholders. So, well, and external. I think it's that internal discussion though that people still seem to want more help with navigating those conversations.
Yeah. It's one of those things that we hear about from MSLs quite often is about budget cuts. They can't go to the conferences they want to, especially those MSLs that are working in the rare disease space where they rely so much on those conferences. And if their company is not giving them the budget they need, then they can't really do that as effectively as they would want to. So it's that age old battle of proving the value to medical affairs. I was just listening to an investor conference. I want to say it was for Arrowhead Pharmaceuticals, maybe, that is in phase 3 at the moment. And they were talking, and the person who was moderating with the two representatives from the company, they had asked them specifically, when are you planning to hire sales and when are you planning to hire MSLs? And of all the investor presentations I've listened to, I don't think I've ever heard somebody ask specifically, when are you planning to hire MSLs? And I thought about that when you were saying that, when you're talking about that fight for the importance of MSLs, it was interesting to hear somebody from that perspective really see the value and for them to be thinking about it, because I know it's such a struggle. So with you being on the client side of what we do here with SymBio, what would you say to an MSL who is looking for a new opportunity and they have maybe found themselves in situations in the past where they were with organizations that didn't really value medical affairs? What would you say to somebody who is looking to try and get into an organization that does not value medical affairs? What advice would you have for them to be able to figure out how a company does that?
That's a good question. I think a commonly asked question that a candidate could ask in an interview would be, well, how's success measured in this role? And you could kind of read between the lines on the answer that you hear back. If the only thing that the hiring manager thinks to tell you is the metrics and how many KOLs you need to see every month, well, I don't know. That might be kind of a red flag. But if they say, well, we're really a project-focused team. It's about success is measured by X, Y, and Z, and you're going to get to do this type of project and then that. That's probably a good sign for how valued the field team is going to be. Sometimes there's companies that are very upfront about the fact that we run lean in medical affairs, and so our MSLs have to be ready to wear more hats and pitch in on publications and ad boards, and that's a good sign. I mean, you're going to be a valued person, if not just out of necessity, with a company like that. But I think that question though kind of gives me a good opportunity to bring up something that I've been hearing from. I've been kind of hearing different takes from both sides lately. So I've heard this common lament lately from MSLs that I don't know what happens with the insights that we bring in. We turn them in, couldn't tell you who reviews them. I don't know what's done with them. We're kind of out of the loop on that. Where at Mass East, it was a big point of emphasis that the feedback loop. It's important to a lot of leaders out there that there's good communication, of course, and that feedback on this kind of thing is provided. This was a really good insight, and here's why, and making that process transparent to everyone, I think is a good sign. And maybe that's a question that a candidate could ask in their interview about what is an impactful insight to you as a member of leadership here, and asking what the insight review process looks like. I think that's good, because if you work at a company where you just have no idea what happens with your insights, it's not going to make you feel like the work that you're doing in the field is very valued, right?
Yeah. Oh, we hear also a lot of people who want to get involved with more strategy. And I almost wonder now in talking about this, I wonder if part of that comes from that feeling of not really knowing where your insights are going and that desire to want to be more hands-on. Okay, I've gathered this insight, now I want to do something with it because the way my current situation is, I'm getting all this great information but I don't know where it's going. So I almost wonder if this desire for people to be more strategic in their roles is born out of the fact that they don't know where the information they are getting is going. It'll be
I think you make a really good point there. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely a buzzword I'm hearing a lot more of is the medical strategies. So, um, what are some markers that you have seen in the companies and the clients that we've worked with over the years that you would say demonstrate a company really places a very high value on field medical from a hiring standpoint in that initial interview or in maybe a better way to ask this is what kind of inside scoop could you offer our listeners and people who are wanting to know a little bit more about the recruiting process about how we look at one client versus another and say, wow, okay, they really value field medical highly. What do you see in that client relationship? Do you think that signals to you, okay, this is a company that's really
I think urgency is a good starting point,
okay.
right? If a company picks up and calls and says, "Hey, we just had a resignation, need to fill their role ASAP," that's a good sign, I think.
Yeah.
Because if they're comfortable sitting, letting the job sit open for months and months, then I don't know. I think that maybe is an indicator that it's not quite as valued to them, right? Maybe that's a harsh way to put it, but I think the urgency that they have in filling the role shows. I think there's a correlation there to how much they value the role. I think companies that let the candidates have an equal opportunity to ask them questions in the interview process is a good indicator too. Because unfortunately, there's some candidates out there that go through an interview process and feel like they asked me a lot of questions and I didn't necessarily get to ask them anything that I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And hey, it's going to happen sometimes. But if it's a persistent thing at a company, that's not going to give people a very good feeling about how valued their voice is and their concerns are.
Yeah,
right?
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a company that has a very robust training program, I think that's a good sign of how much they value you, right?
Yeah.
There's there's a correlation there between a company that wants to prepare you as well as they possibly can before letting you out in the field versus one that says, okay, well, we're going to rush you through the training process and you'll figure it out on your own from there. I think that's a good sign too of how much you're going to be valued there.
Yeah, these are all great points. I know this is a more kind of minor topic that we talk about our candidates with as far as how to snuff these things out in the interview process. It's not something that you can really get as much information as you can when you're actually working for the company. But there are little things that you can look for and things you can pick up on and ways that companies can show value and ways that we can help our clients demonstrate value to the MSLs through the process too, because those things are important to them. And especially with our clients being a lot of more kind of smaller to mid-sized companies, I think that's where candidates feel like they can understand these things more so than in a team of 40 or 40 plus MSLs. So, well, my last question for you is what is on the docket for conferences and bio will be at for the rest of the year?
Well, we'll definitely be at MSL Society or at MSL Society every year. So we'll have a couple of folks there in Miami in September. And we are still trying to iron out what else we'll go to. We're going to hit a couple of scientific conferences the rest of this year. Probably ones in Texas. We'll stay local. But I think there's some really exciting ones out there that we could go to. And I would definitely be interested if any of our MSLs out there have any favorites under the radar.
I give a plug for our texting service. Text us. There's a link in the show notes. Text us and tell us what therapeutic conferences you're going to in Texas. We'd love to hear from you guys to see where you're going to be because maybe we'll be there also. And so shoot us a text, let us know where you're going, and we'd love to meet you in person.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share the link, let your friends know, and of course, connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you want more information on today's topic, please feel free to reach out. Be sure to check back soon as we continue to explore the topics that matter most to you in medical affairs.